Hi guys, so I'm not able to be in class today, but I did want to give you some instructions so you know what to work on. So here's our agenda for today. You have your warm-up like usual, and then we're going to be starting our texture assignment and working on steps 1 through 4. So I know that we still need to finish practicing our texture for, I believe it's the pointy and the rough sphere that we were doing when we were doing our texture notes, but we'll finish that when I get back. So on Friday, we'll finish those two spheres. Okay, so for this recording that I'm doing, you can feel free to pause it and then continue when you finish each one. So like after your warm-up, you can continue watching this. So I'm just going to keep going on here. So for your warm-up today, 1026, make sure you're putting your prompt. Your prompt is draw a Halloween costume you've worn. So like in the past costume that you've worn or that you're going to wear this year. So take about 10 minutes to do your sketch. You can pause this video and then resume it when you are done with your sketch. All right, so we're going to be starting a texture assignment. It is going to be worth 40 points at a project grade. The supplies that we're going to be using are pencil, eraser, blending stump only, so do not use pen or Sharpie for this. We're going to be creating a texture hand, so I've provided a lot of different examples for you to look at. A couple things I want you to see how we have all these different textures on our different fingers. For our project, we are going to put texture in the palm and going down where like the wrist is and the arm. So this part will also be filled with texture. So you can look at the different things. Maybe you want to do a bumpy or a prickly or a hairy texture. We are going to do a brainstorm in the next coming slides. So here are a couple different examples for you to look at. Notice how some of the examples have their nails. So if you want to include the nail, that's fine. Going back and forth so I can show you the difference. If you don't want to include the nail, you don't have to. So it's your choice. It's not a requirement. Maybe you want to transform your whole finger into a different object like this. Like this is a fish. And this one has bugs on it, this one has flower petals. So we're trying to incorporate a lot of different textures, and then remember that the wrist and the arm will also have a texture. Maybe you want to show part of your finger like disconnected like that and show different textures. This one has kind of that slimy, drippy effect right there. So here we have like a wooden texture. This one kind of looks like a brick or stone. This one looks like a thorny, pointy texture. I really like on this example how they have like little chunks of the finger missing. So maybe that's something that you want to include as well. All right, so here was a sample that I did a couple years back. Notice how I chose to leave my nail included. The part of my palm and then my wrist going down would also have texture. So on here you can see how we're just using pencil and we're adding different values, so making some parts darker to show that little shadow, things that we were practicing when we were doing our texture notes. So for your step 1, you are going to pick 6 different textures. On here I've provided a couple different ones, but you can do obviously more. So if you want to right now Google different types of textures, you can. I've included a couple little of some, but then I also have the word etc. right here. So if you want to go in and look for a different texture, you are more than welcome to. So for this step, you can, actually, let me see where I have, okay. So here is an example of my notes. So on a new page, right after your texture notes that we were taking, title it texture assignment at the top. Put step 1, pick 6 textures. And so this is an example of what I did with another class. This is how your sketchbook should look, and this is in the front of the book. So for my step 1 right here, I'm looking at different textures, picking those. So if you'd like to pause your video and set up your notes, you can do that, and then you can figure out what kinds of textures you'd like to do. For your step 2, you are going to brainstorm objects that are these different textures. So Let's say you chose soft texture, bumpy, and pointy. So you're going to do a little cloud for step 2. It says brainstorm. Put all your different textures, and then you're going to try to figure out different objects that are that texture. Okay, so I've created a couple examples. So objects that are rough, I put a picture of a rope. And I put these visuals just so you can see. You don't necessarily need to draw them when you're doing your brainstorm. So for my brainstorm example, I just wrote the actual objects on there so that I know what object I would like to reference when I'm going to be doing my texture on my hand. So like I said, you do not have to go and draw these pictures. These are just examples for you to visualize it. Other objects that are rough, I put a picture of toast, the texture of a starfish, or maybe like different rock right there. Objects that are bumpy, so I included like those squishy balls that have that funny bumpy texture, maybe a pine cone or like a chameleon's skin. Also these pumpkins that have those little bumps on them, those are objects that are bumpy. Maybe I might reference this pumpkin when I'm drawing my bumpy texture on my hand. So you're trying to get an idea of what you want your bumps or your different textures to look like. Objects that are soft, so I put a pillow, cotton, maybe a sponge. So all of these are just different examples for you to look at and try to put your brainstorm together. Objects that are pointy, so I put maybe the top of a pineapple or even like the little sides of it have that pointy texture. Nails, I believe this is a sea urchin, and then I included a puffer fish as well. So all these pictures are going to help me when I'm trying to decide what I want to draw for my texture. Once you figure out your, I'm going to go back to my brainstorm. Once you figure out this middle part, you are going to come down here. So after your brainstorm, set up your page for step 3 and 4, texture squares. So these squares are about the size of my thumb going up and to the side. Notice how number 1 I got from up here. So prickly, I brought this one down up here. Feathery. So these match, that way it keeps it all in order. So you want to create 6 squares to create each of those textures. If you do not have enough space, you can go over to the next page. So we do want to make sure we have enough room to practice the actual texture before we put it on our page. So draw your 6 squares and then draw the different textures you brainstorm. So you might get to maybe a couple textures. What I expect for you guys to have done by today is at least have your top and your middle brainstorm, maybe like at least 2 or 1 of the textures started. So make sure that you are very detailed with your work. I will be including in the PowerPoint that you use to click on this video, I'll be posting a picture of some squares that I've already finished. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me on Remind, and I will try to respond as quick as possible. Hope you guys have a good day. Bye.